Hello and welcome to today's Hub in a Hybrid World education focused webinar. We're due to start in about 2 minutes, so grab yourselves a coffee and get comfortable. Less than a minute to go now before we start the first of a series of 4 Hub in a Hybrid World webinars. So please get ready. In less than a minute, we'll be starting today's transmission. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the first in a series of 4 webinars focused on how Hub is working in today's hybrid world. And today's focus is education. So I'm delighted to welcome Adam Giles from Microsoft UK, who's going to do our introduction. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks very much, Jane. Hello, everyone. Very welcome to you. My name's Adam Giles. I look after the Hub marketing, product marketing in the UK. And today's webinar is for the UK, Central Europe and Western Europe. And this is, as Jane said, the first in a series of 4 webinars talking about Hub in today's hybrid world. And we've seen over the course of 12 months, hybrid working model for employees has emerged. And some will stay remote, as we have been doing for the past 12 months. Some will go back to the offices, we predict, going forward. And there'll be some that do a blend of both. And with that in mind, we need to meet the needs of many companies, and with all of our technological, sorry, put my teeth back in, know-how, that with Hub and Teams meeting room, to be able to make these workspaces, whether you're remote, in an office, or a blend of 2, feel unified, streamlined and together so that everyone gets the same seamless meeting experience. In a recent Gartner study, 82% surveyed respondents said that they were going to intend to permit remote working as we start to transition back into this hybrid world. So that's kind of what we're aiming to do, and this set of webinars is going to explain how. With all of CollabTech's know-how, and there's some really good information that we've put together, including a Surface ebook and supported infographic, which we'll share at the end of all of our webinars. So, without further ado, back to Jane to tell us what's next.
Thank you, Adam, for that introduction. Fabulous. So, welcome everybody. My name's Jane Hammersley. I work with CollabTech Group and I'm responsible for global alliances. So it's amazing for me to welcome people from the UK, people from Western Europe and Central Europe as well. Thank you for joining us. As Adam mentioned, CollabTech is an organisation that doesn't sell hardware, but actually what we do is specialise in collaborative technologies such as Microsoft Surface Hub. And with 5 years experience of deploying, we've got a lot of know-how to work with you and to also share with you. So a lot of knowledge we want to share with you. Adam, I think, thank you for that, has the best job title in the world, Surface Portfolio Advocate for Microsoft. Thank you, Adam. It was great to hear from you and why we're doing this. One thing, we want to answer your questions. If you have any burning questions you want to share with us, please do so, because what we want to do is try and pull together all of your questions at the end of this, and we will come from even demonstrating, if we possibly can, any of the solutions and come back to that right at the end. But actually what I want to talk about is a little bit more focused on education. So just before we go into more information about Hub, it's can we talk about education itself? Now, we heard from Adam there about a Gartner study, and a Gartner study that says when we move back into some kind of normal working environment, that it's more likely that organisations are going to enable remote working. But what about remote learning, remote teaching? How does that look? Well, you can see from the information I've got on the screen that there is still over 1 billion learners worldwide that are being affected by the current pandemic. And at its height, back in April, there was 1.5 billion learners across 165 countries. What that means is we have a responsibility to support those learning and teaching environments to deliver the best that they can. We're certainly in a time when education is super important, and any breaks in education is going to be felt right across the economy. So we want to arm you today with as much information and as many stories about how Hub does that, that supports you when you're talking to your customers out there in the field. And just as if you need any more data to support that, when we look around the world, and this was a UN study, and we look at the distance learning methods, there was many innovations put in. As we know, we're in the middle of the world's largest experiment when it comes to remote teaching, learning, and in fact working. And there are several methods that have been adopted by different countries and different sets of school ages, from radio to television to the traditional, may I say, sort of paper-based learning. I know even in where I live in the UK, there are still some schools that are sending out paper-based working and work for students to complete. But on the whole, 100% of the lower secondary, upper secondary, so we're talking high schools and higher education, further education, and even some primary are putting their lessons online. So what learnings can we bring to this education arena? How can we help them deliver that better set of learning? Because we certainly know what we do on a day-to-day basis with Hub certainly makes those areas a lot more productive. Again, if we needed any more information, we can see that there's nearly 3,000 higher education establishments in Europe, across Europe, and you can add to that another 13,000 business schools in Europe as well. Now, what does that say? That says there's an awful lot of education establishments out there that we can add a lot of value to, especially with Hub. What we're going to do right now is we're going to switch to showing you some real world examples. These are examples that collaboration specialists all over the world have been working with. Now, again, we work alongside Channel, so these aren't our customers, these are your customers. And this is actually a collection of different scenarios and different situations that we've been involved in, whether we are helping to train, helping to deploy, integrate a hub into an environment, or whether we're supporting the channel partner in any other way. So what we're doing is a collection of these stories where we are able, in this scenario, to actually deliver those to you. So I just want to say, before, when we get to the end of this, this is when we will then revert back to questions live, so we can talk to you about any scenario you're interested in. So just as a reminder, please put your questions into the Q&A, and we'll start the video. Thanks very much. I just want to
Hello
say,
and
when we
welcome
get
to
to
Hub
the
in a
end
Hybrid
of
Role. My name
this
is
is when
Yassine
we
Hayo.
will
I am
then
a
revert
collaboration
back
specialist
to
at CollabTech. We help people
the
work better
questions live,
together.
so we can
About 12 months now,
talk to
Professor
you
Kellerman
about
of
any
New
scenario
South
you're
Wales
interested in. So
University
just
in
as a
Australia
reminder,
said something absolutely
please
remarkable when he moved his
put
lectures
your
from
questions
being
into the
in
Q&A,
classroom to being
and
virtually
we'll
online.
start the video. Thanks very much.
He noticed that when he installed his Surface Hub that CollabTech helped him install, he noticed that there was a 1000% increase in engagements and questions that students were making compared to prior to that when it was in-class lectures. To give you a bit of an idea of what that means, there was about 20 questions in classroom, and in a virtual space there's about over 200 chat messages and engagements that students are giving. This of course allows the professor and many others like him to deliver a much higher quality service because of the feedback that the professors would be getting. But that still begs the question, what has caused this sudden shift in behavior? Why have things changed all of a sudden? Why are people so emboldened to now suddenly begin asking questions? Well, the answer is twofold. First of all, one element is Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams creates a virtual front of classroom environment for every student. So they have an equal opportunity to see, hear, and understand the content that's being delivered. The second side to this is the Surface Hub itself. The Surface Hub is a central all-in-one hub that allows you to work with things like Microsoft Teams, as well as bring in and import content from the web, from PowerPoint, Word, Excel, pictures, and documents. It allows you to annotate and really take a deep dive into what it is you're trying to do. The boundaries being basically what your imagination can muster up. These two things together have created an absolutely revolutionary way of working with many educators around the world who found this extremely useful. Ourselves at CollabTech have been involved in deploying thousands of these Surface Hubs to educators all across the globe, and we've essentially compiled this into a 15-minute webinar of what you need to know to best position this to your customers in education. So let's delve straight into this. If there were three things that I would want you to remember from today's session, it would be these three things here. The Surface Hub's main strengths are its ability to dissolve boundaries, its agility, and the mobility that the Surface Hub provides. Essentially meaning that the Surface Hub dissolves boundaries between the physical and the virtual space, allowing you to work as if you were working in real life, or I'd say non-virtually, but keep the same way of working on the Surface Hub. The agility the Surface Hub provides means that you are able to import and export content whilst also moving things around using the mobility aspect of the Surface Hub. And this mobility isn't just virtual mobility, it's also physical mobility. Because the Surface Hub comes in a steel case stand, you're also able to configure an APC battery to the Surface Hub. This means that you can actually move the Surface Hub around, you can unplug it and wheel it to another room without even leaving your meeting, which is pretty revolutionary. Let's take a look at some real life examples to get a bit of a better idea of how educators are actually using the Surface Hub. So let's go into documents. This is pretty much the bread and butter of how people are interacting with the Surface Hub. It is very typical for educators to have a student submit a piece of work and for them to then do the assessment side of it on the Surface Hub. So they may sit there and encourage the student by showing them the things that they may have been getting wrong and the things that they're getting absolutely spot on and that they should continue doing. And this, of course, can allow a student to go from a C- to a very generous A+ with high quality feedback sessions like these. This is extremely typical, and it's extremely typical usage of a Surface Hub. You're not just limited to content that you already have on the Surface Hub. You can also bring in content from external places. So if you have something from somewhere else that you'd like to bring in to show as an example to your students, you can very easily bring that into the Surface Hub at the click of a button without breaking any sweat. This will then allow your student to have an example of how they may want things done. The other way in which the Surface Hub is very often used is in the usage of literature. All right? So many professors will bring in literary classics or books like this, the autobiography or the biography, I should say, of Napoleon, and use the Surface Hub to highlight the bits that are extremely important that they would want to highlight in the lesson. So this provides extreme clarity for the students. They can see exactly what it is that the professor wants to bring their attention to, or any educator of any in any industry, primary school, high school, in corporate training as well. There's many different ways in which you can use the Surface Hub to educate. In many ways, it is used to educate people. Another way in which the Surface Hub is used is using the notes. Now, of course, we know that you can have actual handwritten notes on the Surface Hub, which we are used to, and I mean, the pen flows extremely well and it's very, very easy and intuitive to use. However, the Surface Hub does still take it one step further, and this is one of the use cases that I've seen many professors use that they find extremely useful. That is to take a snapshot of, to take a picture essentially of something that they've been working on using physical handwritten notes, to import that picture into the Surface Hub and digitize that with such ease that you are now able to actually interact with it as if it was digital ink. And this is revolutionary in its usages, because again, this is talking about dissolving the boundaries between the physical and the virtual space, and you can do that painlessly without any effort. Now, I'd like to remind you just how easy this looks, and at the same time how hard this would have been many years ago. If you wanted to do this, you'd have to print out a load of sheets of paper, stick them onto the board and start annotating them. And if you make one annotation, you pretty much can't erase it unless you've done it in pencil. So there are many, many different elements as well, factoring in the time that the students as well as the professors take to actually travel to the lecture. If you're using a Surface Hub, it's saving you literally hours and hours of work whilst not really compromising on the quality of the lecture. The other thing I wanted to bring your attention to is how the Surface Hub interacts beautifully with Microsoft Teams. Because of Microsoft Teams' compatibility with the Surface Hub, joining and using the Surface Hub alongside Microsoft Teams has never been easier. You're able to share your screen. You're able to share your screen on Microsoft Teams with all of the participants and all of the students that are in the lecture, and they're able to see your screen in the same way that anybody else would be seeing it. So this is talking about that equal opportunity for students to see, hear, and understand what the lecturer is saying. Now, that still does leave the question, what causes this, what we like to call internally, this Kellerman effect of a 1000% increase in engagements by the students? And the answer is very simple. What many lecturers will now do is they will have the chat window open alongside their lecture. And this will allow them to keep an eye on the questions and the discourse that students are having. If a professor or an educator happens to see something that they would want to take a bit of a deep dive to, you can simply take a screen clipping and import the question to the Surface Hub and decide that they're going to talk about it. So if a lecturer would want to answer a question that one of his students would have, he can do so with such ease. That isn't the quadratic formula. I seem to have forgotten it, which is what they're asking for. But yeah, so this is one example where they can actually pick out the question and answer it directly if need be. But sometimes there are some questions which other people within the class might know. In this case, another student, for example, would be answering the question, and the lecturer could give it the tick of approval and continue on with the lesson. So the reason why people are more willing to engage and interact in Microsoft Teams and in the virtual sphere is because of three things that are not present in physical on-site lectures. And that is the fact that, one, there is less anxiety involved in typing a message into a chat as opposed to putting your hand up and interrupting a lecture. Although many lecturers don't mind it, some students don't feel as comfortable with asking questions in person as they do online. The second thing is that there is communal information sharing available on the Surface Hub. If you have a bunch of students in the chat, a student could ask a question that another student could then address, and all the lecturer would have to do is essentially give it that stamp of approval. The second thing is the disruption. Because of the fact that it is on Microsoft Teams and it is in the chat, the disruption is very, very minimal. You won't have any disruption unless the professor decides to specifically address the person that is speaking. So to have done this in person would be much more difficult to replicate in an in-classroom environment. And this is how Microsoft Teams essentially unlocks the capabilities of the Surface Hub in a beautiful way. Another thing which many educators are using is the 85-inch, which we're going to go into right now.
As mentioned earlier, the Surface Hub fosters collaboration, communication, and innovation by allowing researchers and professors to focus on delivering a quality session. In some cases, some more real estate is needed, for use such as in larger lecture halls and for a smoother multitasking experience. The new and improved 85-inch Surface Hub fills those needs. Unfortunately, one downside is that it doesn't quite fit in my little home office, so we've got one of our colleagues from our Mesa office to show you around. The beautiful 85-inch matte display is extremely easy on the eyes. Whiteboarding affords you space generally reserved for traditional whiteboards, in addition to the infinite virtual canvas on offer by the 85-inch. The widescreen display allows for more space for collaboration and multitasking. You can view complex 3D models whilst utilizing the display without compromising on quality. Teaching professionals in fields requiring these, such as the STEM and medical fields, will no doubt find the ease of navigation revolutionary. The 85-inch is especially perfect for educators who wish to multitask, whilst having minimal reduction in the size of either window when compared to the 50-inch. As you can see, you get close to a full-size representation of both windows on the 85-inch. PowerPoint presentations on the 85-inch now appear bigger and better than before. Intimate details can be viewed on the Surface Hub's crystal clear display, whilst leaving plenty of space for the presenter to do their job without obstructing the content. You can swipe through at the click of a finger. External content pulled into the hub, such as Word documents that need assessing, will allow educators and students alike to take a practical hands-on approach to learning. There is more space than ever before for highlights and annotation, leaving no room for confusion. The 100-point touch sensitivity means multiple people can use the 85-inch at the same time. Just make sure you are adhering to local social distancing regulations.
So there you have it. The Surface Hub 2S feels almost tailor-made for your customers in education, and I'm sure they will agree. The ability for you to dissolve boundaries between the physical and the virtual workspace and have them working together in harmony. The agility that the Surface Hub gives you, where you can import and export documents, pictures, videos, and many, many more things with relative ease. And the mobility of the Surface Hub, when you include an APC battery with it, the physical mobility, meaning you can actually cart it around places without losing any power. This is proven to be very valuable for many educators, in addition to the current setup where they are using Microsoft Teams to drive up engagements by students and to take the anxiety, the disruption, and the difficulty out of engagements with students and causing that 1000% increase. So speak to your customers about the Surface Hub 2S. They may find it very useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yazin. And apologies for hearing the dual audio stream at the beginning of that. That was really due to a live event, and we were actually sharing another stream as well. So huge apologies. Hope it didn't disrupt your enjoyment of the video there, and thank you, Yazin. Right, and we're just going to conclude on some of the points that Yazin actually brought to us here. And I'm going to start with just going back on Yazin's first point, really, which was actually about usage in Australia with Dr. Kellerman, who was featured in a video. Actually, our colleagues in Australia supported Dr. Kellerman in his environment. An amazing watch in how he uses Teams and Surface Hub throughout his teaching. And I mean, he's somebody I would call a super user or a power user. He has multiple pieces of technology all working together during his lecture to deliver what is essentially an immersive interactive experience. And his passion for teaching and his passion for technology really does come through. So what we'll do actually in the follow-up to this webinar is we will send you the links to the Dr. Kellerman video and also a link to our latest video featuring Hub in a Hybrid Education World as well, which appeared for the first time yesterday on LinkedIn. So I'm going to just pause the PowerPoint there for a second. We've just heard from Yazin, we've just seen some great use cases of Hub in a hybrid education world, and I hope you can take those stories back to your customers. We will send a review of today's webinar in an email to you after this as well, but just wanted to really highlight those three last points. Because we're also going to send you links to a new ebook from Microsoft that talks about Hub and how it's used in many different verticals. But they talk about three very specific areas: dissolving physical and virtual boundaries. And what we mean by that, it's not just about it can be used in anywhere in any language, but it can actually break down barriers between people. So Yazin, you heard him talking about Dr. Kellerman's amazing 20 people used to put their hands up in a live lecture, but now he's getting 200 live chats during his lecture, so it's much more engaging. So dissolving physical boundaries, but we also talk about digital workflow. So being able to work in the same platform seamlessly throughout your day. Again, that's not just education, that can be almost any vertical sector, but being able to live in teams, whether it's a meeting, whether it's a chat, whether it's sharing documents, that digital workflow is massively important. And then finally, the agility of Hub. It's not just great for today's hybrid world, but whatever tomorrow throws at us, Hub can be used in that environment as well. Now, let's go to questions. I'm going to throw the first question to Giles. Sorry, Giles. Adam. We have some questions come in here. So the first question, probably a little unsurprisingly, because it's the top of everybody's mind at the moment, is around the 85-inch. Let me read you the actual question. The 85-inch has been announced. Firstly, is it available? If it isn't available, when will it be available?
Great question. It's becoming available. I would speak to your local distributor to find out exactly when you're able to get your hands on some. At the moment, we have a number of back orders already that we have to fulfill. So get your orders in is sort of the answer, which I know isn't the it's out on this date. We've got all of these, but we are kind of working through back orders, and obviously in this time we're having to work with getting stock into our disties. So please speak to your distributor of choice, and they'll be able to tell you when you'll be able to get one or get some. But I would recommend getting those orders in because, as I said, we have a number of back orders that we have to fulfill.
Okay, yes, thank you, Adam. I remember what it was like in distribution life when we were waiting for stock to come in. So probably would reinforce what you're saying, which is if you are a channel partner, you have orders for 85-inch, get them placed as quickly as you can with your distributor of choice. So on the distributor front, we have across Western Europe and Central Europe, we've got 2 distributors, that's Also and Maverick, Tech Data Maverick, and then in the UK, of course, it's Maverick. So reach out to your distributor and make sure you've got those orders in place. Okay, Adam, I'm going to give the next question for you. It's kind of associated, but it talks about steel case roam stands. So I've got one question that says, does the 85-inch have a steel case or does it have a cart or a stand? And the second question from somebody else, when is that available as well?
Okay, great. So there we go. Sorry, I jumped the gun there and started talking before the bit switched to me. So yes, there is a steel case available. We are partnering with Steel Case again to bring that for 85-inch. It's a really cool steel case. There's actually a video on our YouTube channel showing kind of the unpacking and some accessories with that. So steel case will be available. We don't have a date of availability just yet. But again, speak to your local distribution partner and they'll be able to tell you when they're getting supply of that. But I don't have a date in terms of when that's available, but it is coming.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Adam. That's great and comprehensive response there. Right, Yazin, prepare to go live. This one I'm going to direct at you. Right, a little complicated, so hold on to it. Can you tell me in which circumstance you would recommend Microsoft Surface Hub, in which circumstance you would recommend MTR, and by that they mean Microsoft Teams rooms, for anybody who doesn't know, and in which circumstance would you recommend both together?
Thank you for that, Jane. That's a very good question, one that we actually receive quite often, and the answer is that there is no simple answer. It depends on a few things: the size of the room that you want to use and put it in, the type of workflow and the things that organizations will prioritize. I can tell you that generally, as a rule of thumb, what we do is if it's a small room, we tend to recommend MTR devices, and for medium-sized rooms, we'll go for hub or large-sized rooms as well. And if it's sufficiently large, sometimes even hub and MTR would be the ideal solution. So in short, the answer is it depends.
Thank you, Yazin. I love the it depends, but you're absolutely right. A combination of hub and MTR works really well in a large space that's multifunctional, not always used for collaboration, sometimes can be used for just video conferencing. And hub can be used in as a side of the room device there as well. But of course, now we've got the 85-inch coming in, which is wonderfully exciting. Microsoft Surface Hub 2S becomes a side of the room with a 50.5 and a front of the room with the 85-inch there as well. Okay, another question. This time, Yazin, it's going to come to you. I'm going to bat it back and probably got another couple of questions if I'm looking at the time here. This is from my good friend and former colleague Lars. Thank you, Lars. And it's a question actually that has been on the minds of people for a while, which is, when will we see Teams chat on Surface Hub? And I know it's been a challenge for Microsoft in the past, because you know, if you are setting up a one-off meeting or a meeting with external colleagues, where that chat lies, and obviously the security and the data that sits within that chat arena. So I'm going to hand over, I'm going to sidestep that one and give it to Yazin.
Good question again, and it is something that's under consideration. Of course, with the Surface Hub, it's supposed to be a communal device, so there's those things to take into consideration. But generally, there is a way around it that ourselves at CollabTech recommend. We usually tell people to sign in via Microsoft Edge, and that way you will still be able to access your chat, so you don't have to actually switch between different
devices when you are trying to see the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you, Yazin, and thank you, Lars. Lars did point out as well, top tip from Lars is adding a video to the video channel via the HDMI capture card instead of content channel makes the video run smoothly. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Really good point, which is that content capture being displayed on the screen. Just really for your information, we decided not to do that in this case. Really, for you guys, it wasn't really necessarily about the content that was on the screen. We wanted to ensure that we were facilitating you with stories and real use cases that you can take out to your customers. What we will be doing is building a portfolio of content, I probably would say, with videos, additional PowerPoint type presentations that you can take out with your customers that is really more pertinent to today's hybrid world. One final question's just come in, which I'm happy to take. What is CollabTech's experience with lower education? Interesting question. Do you see Surface Hub as a viable option for schools and colleges? If so, how can we best address the concern around pricing compared with other boards? I think there is a big disparity, especially if you look in primary schools into Surface Hub 2S compared with many other interactive whiteboards that are out there on the market. Surface Hub is being taken very well into further education and higher education and some secondary schools. We haven't seen a great deal of uptake in primary, and I think that's probably because the platform that the primary schools are also using is not a Teams platform. It is more of a proprietary platform to their needs, whereas we see further education colleges and higher education looking for a much wider platform such as Teams. So I don't think it's just a cost issue. I think it is a platform issue as well. So that's where we have run out of questions. If anybody wants to reach out to us directly, please do so. We can be reached through our website. And again, we do not sell hardware and we only support channel partners. So if we can help you deploy Surface Hub 2S's, integrate and install, then we'd love to do that. We have global specialists all over the world. I will be reaching back out with an email covering everything we've spoken about today, but all that's left for me to do is thank you very much for your attendance, and I hope to see you at future events. Please register for those now. Thank you.